Yeah. Hey. 3-point firefighter, always ready for more. Saving citizens and leaving egos at the door. Another day up in the life, showing you what it takes. Got the hunger, pride, drive, spirit that never breaks. Yeah, always there when danger is threatening. When seconds count, guess what? We're counting the seconds. 3-point firefighter. 3-point firefighter. Hey, IGAF.
Starting soon. Here we go. Is it starting? I guess it's starting. It's counting down. We must be on the air. Who knows?
We are.
Welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. Today, my guest is Tony Ambrosia. Now, Tony has been in the fire service for 29 years. He is currently a Captain Paramedic in Scottsdale, Arizona Fire Department. He's been in the training division for about 4 years. He holds a bachelor's degree from Columbia Southern, with his major being mustache growing and his minor being kicking ass and taking names. Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Got a good one.
Got good. Fire Instructor 1 and 2 and an Instructor Evaluator for the state of Arizona. I met him through the ISFSI, where he is currently the Region 1 Director. And he also is one of our instructors for the new roadmap to the modern Fire Instructor 1400. Met the guy. I was around him 2 seconds, fell in love with him. Greatest guy there is. Begged him to be on here. Oh, I also got to read this. He sent me his bio here. I'm trying to read this. He spent a lot of time on the ladder truck, and he's also a terrorist. He teaches Haz-Mat. Wait a minute, that can't be right. Terrorist Liaison Officer. So you're not actually a terrorist?
No.
Okay, so I guess you don't know my ex-wife. Okay, we'll move on then. So, welcome to the show, Brother Tony.
Thank you for having me, Jake. It's a pleasure to be here.
When we were up in northern Indiana, I loved talking to you. I loved listening to you. I loved watching you teach when you were teaching the 1410 drills, I believe, outside. I love the ISFSI for a million different reasons, but I feel like if I have any hope of becoming a better instructor, which I feel like I'm on that road, I've got to surround myself with these great instructors. So it was you, it was Tony Avillo, Scott Wallace, Jesse Marcotte. I'm watching all of you all teach. And the one thing that I love, if I could steal something from you, was the level of comfort that you had. And my favorite instructors are the ones that they're like sitting down at the table with me at the firehouse going over something. You know, it's not that lording over you like I'm the instructor, I'm the subject matter expert. You never did that. And every single time we went to dinner and you talked about the fire stuff, when you talked to anybody on breaks, or you were teaching people, you were the same dude, man. You were just like passionate about sharing that one-on-one. Do you even realize you're doing that? Is that your plan, or is it just natural for you?
No, I think I've evolved quite a bit as just a person myself. Being 6'3", 260 pounds, being a large guy my whole career, I've had to overcome some of that. Boy, this guy's intimidating. I'm afraid to listen to him. You know, I'm worried he's going to get pissed off at me and yell at me. You know, yeah. So I do have a certain passion for training and you know, in order to be a good training officer or somebody that is going to train, you have to know your subject matter and becoming an expert in that. There's a comfortability that you have to be able to talk about it. But so, you know, personally, me, it's sharing my passion for training and getting people out there. The only way we are going to be successful in our jobs is to train. Yes. Every single day we should learn something new. And you were talking about, you know, surrounding yourself by good people and people that are good at their craft, man. I was in awe, truly in awe of the people that were in that 1400 train the trainer class. And I took a good hour just to watch and to listen and to see everybody's style, because we all do have different styles. You know, right. I'm that guy that I move my hands. I'm Italian, so I move my hands a lot. Physically getting involved in doing what we're training on, doing what we're teaching. Never to be afraid to demonstrate. I've seen instructors that really are worried about messing up so much that they mess up when they're trying to demonstrate something, and that just you don't get that message to the student, and that's being confident in it. That means you have to train it, and you got to do it. So I think that's part of it. Again, my size is I've always used it to my benefit, whether I was playing football or all my sports that I played. But knowing that I can be a dominant person in the room at any time I want to be, but knowing that I don't have to be. I can be the person that's not only learning, not only observing everybody, but never being afraid to input when I see that there's a miss or an opportunity to express my passion for training. I jump right in, man. I can't. It's not me. I can't sit back. I can sit back and learn. I can sit back and watch. But when it's my turn to go, it's time to go.
It showed, and it was a lot of fun for me to watch that. And I got a little notebook here. I usually keep notes on instructors, even instructors that I've seen over and over and over and over. I still try to steal their stuff, right? And that's one of the ones that I actually wrote down was like this guy's passion. Now, where I tend to fail is I tend to over prepare to where it's I miss stuff. And I know it's hard for me to explain. The best example I can give you, and it's out there on the internet, easy to watch, is I've done a couple webinars with a friend of mine, Gilbert. You met Gilbert out there, right? So we did a webinar for, I want to say it was fire rescue. Then they asked us to do another one. Well, so on the second one, I wanted to be Joe prepared. I literally wrote out a script. I researched everything, any question that could have possibly come up. You can watch it today. It's the worst webinar you'll ever see. Gilbert is talking, but I am literally like, here are some subjects that I would like to discuss, even though I was like reading it. It was horrible. I knew the information, but I couldn't relay it. And that was an important lesson for me. And that's when I started, I kind of started before that, but I really focused on stealing people's, some of their instructor energy, because some people just flows naturally, like you and Tony Avilo both were just like talking to people. Scott Wallace, I've seen him. I've taught with him all over the country, and he just like he's chatting with you, like he's having a beer, like, it's kind of cool. And that's an art, I believe, when it comes to instruction, and the passion for the instruction is there. It's great, but I got to ask you, my opinion, it's easy to be passionate about training when you're training people that want to be there. When you have to train people that your own people that do not want to come to training, they don't think you know what you're talking about. They know 20 years of you screwing around, so you're not that professional to them. How do you feel about that dichotomy of being the same instructor, the same great firefighter, the same great instructor, everything, but you're received totally different in those two realms?
So I think that's where you gotta know your room. It's really easy to tell the guy that doesn't want to be there. It's really easy to tell the guy that really wants to be there, that wants to learn. So what I do, I engage everybody. So and I really force those guys that don't want to be there. And I don't care how many years you're on. I'm definitely not the most experienced. I definitely don't have all the knowledge. I have made a million mistakes, and I learn every single time I make a mistake. I learn from it, and I use real life scenarios. I think that people forget when you're standing up in front of them, they're not in awe of you, but hey, you've done something. You put yourself out there. You're in front of the room, and people, for the most part, really respect that. Even if they have 30 years on and don't want to be in the room, they'll give you that little bit of respect. But I think it's the respect you give them back. Correlating everything that you're training about or talking about and to real life scenarios, and actually getting those people that don't want to be there engaged into the conversation is important. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody who has an opinion. Now you gotta moderate it. You got to make sure that we don't go off kilter or go down rabbit holes that do nothing but just derail the class. But getting those guys engaged, and over the last 4 years being in training and doing being the for lack of better terms, the face of training in Scottsdale Fire, you also have to know there comes a time when people are, hey, can we get somebody else in here and do all this training?
Right.
Know when your voice doesn't have the power that it used to have, or have the desired end result that you want, and realizing it might be time to step back, or it might be time to be the guy in the background. And to be honest with you, this is something that's really raw with me, because this is my last week, this next coming week, my last week in training. I'm going back out into the field. So I had to take a deep dive in my own self and say, hey, if I reached my point in training to where somebody else needs to come in and engage. I took a deep dive, and I love training. I don't want to leave. I want to stay in this position. It's probably the best position in our fire department. But knowing that my voice, whether it has or whether it hasn't, it's my impression that it's time for somebody else to step up and become that leader. Now, I have some ulterior motives that, I want to promote to battalion chief. It's a very difficult thing to do when you're in training and you have been in for 4 years. I can run a call. I work enough overtime to run calls and be back on the truck. But there's some everyday things that need to be learned by me to become the best battalion chief that I want to be when the promotional process comes up. And speaking of failures, we just had one this past year, and I did not perform well in the testing process. And to again, you got to be able to look at yourself first and realize, hey, it's time. I got to get back on the field. I got to get re-engaged in the daily operations, so that when it comes time for me to take this test again, which is coming up in April, I'll be prepared. I didn't prepare myself properly, and that was a learning process for me. And now combine that with, hey, it's been 4 years. Let's get somebody else in here. We have a very, very young fire department in Scottsdale, and I'm an old school guy. I don't yell and scream, but I'm very dominant, like I said, in the room. And it's time for somebody else to be that voice of training, and I'm good with it. My decision has been made, and man, I'm excited about going back out to the truck. But it will not stop my part in training. The good thing is that I'm one of the developers of our new training center, so they're going to be relying on me for stuff anyway. And my truck is we have a permanent probationary rotation in it, so every 3 months I get a new probationary firefighter. So
that's nice.
I still get to do all that stuff over again, but just now on a daily basis on my truck.
Now that you've been in training and now you're going to be back on the truck with new people, are you going to be that guy that says day one, forget everything you learned in training, I'll show you the right way? You're going to do that?
No, what a hypocrite I would be if I did say that, because we've had guys that have said that before. Yeah. The academy is different, when you're teaching the fire academy, but to teach the incumbents for the last 4 years, that's been what's the greatest part of my job.
It's a blast. I did not want to be a training officer. I fell bass backwards into it. I'm blessed to have done it. But I agree with you. There's a shelf life there. There's a shelf life in being an instructor. Now, small department, 5 stations. I was the entire training crew. Now I had people that helped me, great cadre, informal cadre that helped me. But basically, I was a training officer. And after, I don't know, I did it for like 11 or 12 years. But I couldn't ride the trucks during that time. I couldn't get overtime. So at some point, and I want to say for me, I should have 5, 6 years gone back on the trucks, because it becomes academic at that point. I do nothing but I'm training you to be on a roof. Now, I've been on plenty of roofs. I've pulled people out. I've done all that stuff. But after you've been in training for 10 years, that's way off in the distance now. So with a smaller department, it's harder to move. Pretty much the only way you can move is to demote yourself. And I kind of wish I did. I should have done that. I didn't. It is what it is. But I also think it was the same thing that drove me to the ISFSI, because I wanted to stay on top of all the new stuff coming out, all the new strategies, tactics, studies, everything that's coming out. And I really think it's been a pretty good balance. But it's funny you say that, because training is it's got a shelf life. You go there, you make your mark, and then you move on. And that trust, the person that's coming up behind you, you put a lot of work into it, and you're handing this baby over to somebody that you hope is going to care for it the same way. Well, and I've heard stories that didn't work out that way.
Well, so basically, when I went into training 4 years ago, our training department at the time was a deputy chief, and that was it. We didn't have any battalions. We didn't have any captains in the training. It was one of the things, the whole 2008 downfall of the fire service, and the financial aspect of it. Those were the things we had to give up in order to continue to keep people on a truck running calls. So when we got that stuff back, my partner, Matt Perry, and we went into the training division with a blank slate. So for 4 years, we had the opportunity to create our training division under the guidance of a deputy chief, but that deputy chief trusted us to know here's open arms, an open book, go to town, make it work.
That's awesome. A grassroots, brand new training program from the ground up.
And now we get to hand that off. And that's such a great feeling to be able to and the guy that's taken my spot, he's an incredible firefighter captain, and he's going to be awesome for our department. The differences between how he delivers and I deliver is going to be great for our department. And again, I still get to be involved in multiple things. I'm still a 1403 instructor, so I'll go down there for all the live burns and get to do all that stuff. So my opportunity is there, but there's a career development that you have to maintain. And I still love going to work every single day. I get up early, I go in and I work out, and then I go to work, and I'm going to continue to do this until I don't have that feeling anymore. The day I go, man, I really don't want to go to work today. Now that's happened a couple times, especially over the last couple of weeks. It's been a heck week, but that's still not my overall feeling. I love being on the truck. I'm going to steal Chief Brunacini's. I still love going to help Mrs. Smith. And I'm blessed, because not many people in this career can say that. 29 years in, and I still love going to work. That's amazing.
Yes. That says a lot. Matter of fact, I meet a lot less of people like you than people that are like you. Usually you get 29 years and you're a couch pilot. You know how to work every remote, no matter what TV it is. I speak about this fairly openly, and it's kind of my penance. The way I see it with this podcast is I went through my period of being the biggest lazy bag of shit, self-entitled, they're lucky to have me kind of guy. If they had fired me like 15 years ago, honestly, they wouldn't have been wrong. I was as lazy as I could be. And it turned out it was more or less my own egos that got in my way. But when that switch flipped, it was like day one. Like, you remember the first day you get your t-shirt for your fire department, and you put it on and you see the Maltese at that moment. It's like you get one of those in your entire life. You get that one moment when I'm wearing the fire department t-shirt I want to wear. And I've had that feeling from that day pretty much till now. I've fell back in love with the fire service. I embrace all the shit that I do wrong, which is a ton. Like, if somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, I saw your podcast. I used to work with you. I remember you fucked up throwing a 24-foot ladder with one person." Oh yeah. Not only did I do it that time, I probably did it 100 times before then, but I never quit and I got better. And so it's so nice to meet people that that are in the fire service, that have been in the fire service, and you're not coasting, you're speeding up.
Right.
I think that's awesome. That's exactly what's happening.
You know what you say that you making the mistakes and learning from your mistakes. Gosh, when I was again, has a lot to do with my size. I was that bully. I was the station bully. I took control of things, and it was all my own ego and all that stuff. And it was a light came on. It was right around my my time where I wanted to promote to captain, and I was like, man, I can't keep doing what I'm doing. It doesn't work. You don't. I had a ton of friends, and I have a ton of friends in the fire service, but it was like, man, do these people really want to be around me? Do I make their day better? And it was some self actualization, and the light went on, and man, again, you just said it. You revitalized your career, and that's what happened to me. I revitalized my career, and I will say it, and I tell this to my recruits. I tell this to probationary firefighters all the time. If you can still love coming to work after 29 years, you've done something right.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. And I'm like you. I had a few times that I didn't want to go to work, but I think 99.9% of the time I was so excited. For years, I mean, years and years and years. When I started in the military as a firefighter. I know you're thinking hero. I hate when you call me hero. It is what it is, you know.
Well, you got double hero because you not only are you served, thank you for your service, but then you became a firefighter and being a hero. So you're like the hero's hero.
You know what? I do think I'm better than everybody else. When you say it like that, I feel like
hero. That might be your new nickname for me, Jay. You're the hero's hero.
8 squared.
Right.
8 squared.
Oh,
Hero.
There you go.
But I used to, when I was in Lexington, every single night before work, I would iron my uniform, and I would shine my boots, and I would hang it up on this one door. We lived in this condo, and after I got everything perfect, and I did this every day. I sat down on my couch before I went to bed, and I just stared at it, and I knew how lucky I was. And I've said on this podcast, I feel bad for astronauts and fighter pilots because they don't get to be firefighters. But that feeling there is one that I get from time to time still to this day. And I think people need to reevaluate sometimes if they find themselves going to work because they have to, they got to pay bills, or they find themselves as soon as they put their shit in the fridge and their stuff on the truck, they go to a day room or whatever. They need to reevaluate those moments when they found out they got the letter. It said, "You're a firefighter. Congratulations." Or they put that T-shirt on and looked in the mirror and saw that Maltese. Or they got to actually the first time they had a hand on somebody and pulled them out. You know, those moments are there for us. We just have to tap into them and fall back in love with the fire service. When you join the fire service, especially as an instructor, I think, but anybody joining the fire service, you take on a debit. You just take on a debit. You start the job in the hole. And that debit is you have to do anything and everything to help everybody that you come across. Everybody. And I remember I got Steve Gillum, Lieutenant Steve Gillum. We made a run on a lady, called us for, I don't know, chest pain, whatever. She knew how to play the system. All it was is she wanted somebody to take her bracelet off. She could take her bracelet off. She couldn't see the little clasp. So I, being the egotistical, I was like, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But I'll never forget, Steve Gillum walked right up to the door and he said, well, let me see that, ma'am. And he had his glasses on and he unhooked it and he said, there you go, ma'am. There it is. It's, they make special tools. They'll help you with that, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, and the whole time I'm mad. I'm like, we could be fighting fires and blah, being that guy. And I'll never forget, it's just as nicely as he could say is, ma'am, if you could, please don't call 911 because that's for emergencies, and he explained the whole thing. And then he gave her the house phone number, which I thought was stupid. He goes, if you have any trouble, call the house phone number, ask for the lieutenant on duty, and we'll help you. Now, she never called again, but he showed her respect. He wasn't upset. And he knew his debit that he took on is to help people. It's not just fire and CPR. We're there to help people. People call us when they have no idea how to fix anything.
We're fixers.
We're fixers. That's what we are.
My wife yells at me all the time because I'm a fixer and I want to fix everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes that gets me into trouble. But, similar story, 2:00 in the morning, a lady who has trouble moving around her house called us because she needed a glass of water. And that was it. And I remember specifically thinking, okay, this is going to get our guys upset. We get the information over our computer and you I usually give my guys all the information as we're en route to the call, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I just read what we're going on. I probably shouldn't say this to the guys because they're just going to get pissed off. And I'm like, no, let's share it, but I'll follow up with something. And this is something I've actually kind of lived by. That was really early in my time being a captain. So I told the guys that the lady's just requesting she needs some water. Our alarm room has been told by our fire chief from the top down, if somebody calls and they need assistance, doesn't matter what it is, you dispatch a truck to it. They don't what's the word? They don't scan the calls or screen the calls. Somebody calls and it's in the city of Scottsdale, we go, period. Right. So I tell them and it's the grumbling starts. Man, it's 2:00 in the morning. What, water? That's really what she wants. I say, yeah. I go, guys, bitch now. Get it all out. Because the minute we open the doors to get off that truck, that's your mom. Oh, your mom called you to come get a glass of water. And we never disrespect our moms. So, and that's one of my rules. To everybody, anybody that's on my truck, you can complain all you want until that door opens on that truck. And then we go to work. Yes. Whether that's fighting a fire, whether that's fixing somebody's broken leg, whether that's lifting Mr. Jones up or getting a glass of water for Mrs. Smith. You go in there, you treat that person like they're your family. You get it done and you go back in the truck and you can talk about it some more. Right. Open that door to get back into the station. It's ended. It's done. It's over. Yeah. Because guys, we tend to, and again, I was one of those guys, man. I take that difficult call. I take that annoying call. In Scottsdale, we have a really large bar district. So 3:00 in the morning when the bar's let out, we're running drunks. We're picking up people that are puking everywhere. They're covered in their own excrement, whatever. And those can.
Thanks for not saying shit.
Yeah, those can get really, really grating, and they can bring a whole crew down. And again, you got to put boundaries on it as the officer. So that's super important. It doesn't matter what that person called us for. We're going to go try and fix what they have, and we're going to be super nice. And then we're going to get back in the truck and we're going to release it. And then when we get back to the station, it's done and it's over with. And whether I'm right for doing that, whether I'm wrong for doing that, it seems to work. It certainly works for me because God knows those calls bug me just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
But I release them. And I used to not do that when I was younger. I used to not do that when I was that angry guy. So one of my nicknames is Angry Tony. So they don't call me that anymore because I released it now. I found a way not to have to keep that.
Would it be nice to go back to day one Tony, day one Jake, as us now, and go, listen, here you're going to run into this, and this. I'm going to give you the secret sauce right now.
Yep.
Be nice to everybody. Don't talk shit about anybody. Help every brother and sister you can. Get to work early. Always do the dishes. Clean the truck. Never bitch. Imagine. I mean, and we try to do that with new recruits, but obviously, it's not the same thing. But
Jake,
imagine.
I can't imagine where my career would be. I mean, truly, where my career would be if I had realized that early in my career, if I didn't become that angry Tony, if I didn't have some of the issues that I had, and if I had realized that this job is incredible and can be made super easy if you realize and you get release of that. Now, I know obviously there's a lot of stuff out now on PTSD and what the calls actually do to us and how to get rid of those calls. I know that, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the everyday grind of being a firefighter and all that we do. There's not a firehouse in our department, in the state of Arizona and in the nation that isn't busy doing training, learning new we're putting together rescues, so everybody's learning something new computers, new way to document, new way to protect yourselves. there's a new subject matter that's out there every single day. Heck, I won't even go into electric vehicles. I won't even go into the type of chemicals that are coming off that stuff. Just the dangers and the speed at which the dangers now attack us.
Right.
There's not a firehouse in the nation that's not super busy, and realizing that can be a real heavy lift sometimes, but to know that you got to get rid of it. You got to be able to come back on the truck, and you got to be able to run calls. And if not, if you can find that you can't do that early, it's probably not a profession you need to stay in very long, because you're not going to be successful, and you're going to run into the mental health issues of your divorce, or, I mean, name a firefighter that hasn't been divorced.
Right. I know I have.
I could probably count them on two hands, but that's because that person didn't realize what they were getting into early enough. And longevity in this field is tough.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. Brother, I appreciate you being on week 1, part 1. We're going to be back part 2 next Monday. And we're going to pick up where we left off, because you said some things that got me thinking. So thanks for being on, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks,
Jake. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I hope this was worthwhile, and I'm ready for part 2.
Now, you got to wear the exact same clothes for part 2. I'm going to wear the same stuff. You're going to wear the same stuff, same lighting, same everything for next week.
Can I comb my hair?
I would definitely comb your hair. It looks like shit right now.
Thank you.
And we're back to part 2. We were talking about last week the importance of what we've learned over our career. And you said something about, and maybe I misheard you or misinterpreted it, but did you say that, because I said, well, hey, if we could go back and teach our young selves all the pitfalls to avoid, things would be great. But did I understand you correctly? Did you say that you prefer to have been that Tony because it got you to where you are now? Or are you saying that you wish you were never that Tony?
So realistically, I wish I had never been that Tony, because I probably wasn't very kind to people and wasn't very successful in where I thought in my head where I wanted to go. And I probably put barriers up in my own way. So if I had gotten out of my own way and become the Tony I am now, yes, I would change those things. I don't know if that's possible, because I believe, like, I think I know where you're going with this. I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't go through those things. But right. I certainly would have loved to have been able to say, hey, Tony, don't do that, because it's going to make you harder to get to be the person that you need to be. That's what I meant by it. Again, I know we talked about it. Every failure that I've ever had has been a learning experience. And you can either sit on your butt and pout and say everybody's against me, or you can say, hey, let me go back. You have to say, I own this. It was my mistake. What can I learn from it so that I never do it again? But what can I learn from it, and how can I grow from it? I'll give you a really big example of a growth period. Is that you make a mistake, whether it's I specifically remember a mistake I had on a working church fire. We have valves that we attach to the hydrant, and we can open our valves and close our valves to either pump the plug or just flow it like a regular opening from a hydrant to the truck. And I attached it to the wrong side of the valve. I attached our hose line to the wrong side of the valve. I've done it 100 times before that. I just wasn't paying attention. So I open my hydrant, water's flowing out the street. I want to go fight fire, so I don't even realize it. I go running up around the corner, get to the church, and my engineer is saying, hey, I got no water. So I ran all the way back, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the hydrant going, what the heck is wrong? And then it hit me. I'm like, well, gosh dang it. In the meantime, I hear over the radio, we got fire knockdown, extensive mop up, blah, blah, blah. I missed the whole damn fire because I put the hose line on the wrong side of the valve. So I was mad. I started blaming everybody else. Whoever put that on did it the wrong way. They set me up for failure. I didn't get to go fight fire. That's bullshit. I'm going to find out who did that. No, dummy, it was you. You have to admit it. Take responsibility for it. And I was sitting back at the station, and one of my best friends in the fire service, his name's Chris. He was on the fire, and he's looking at me, and he goes, "You know, you're a moron, right?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" "Well, I know how mad you are because I got to go play and I got to put the fire out, and you didn't get to do shit. Ha ha ha! But it was your own fault, dummy." And it was just the way he said it to me. It was like a little light bulb. God dang it! Yeah, take responsibility for what you did, what you said, and how you did it. And now shut up. Don't blame anybody else, and correct it. So one thing I remember, which side the valve the hose needs to be attached to, I'll never forget it. And when I teach a recruit, or we've changed, like, I think it was 2 years ago, we changed the way we take hydrants, blah, blah, blah. When I teach that, man, that's one of the things I can explain to whether it be a new recruit or it be a 20-year firefighter. Hey, this can happen. And this is what happens if that happens.
Right.
So not only do I make fun of myself for being an idiot and attaching to the hose to the wrong side, mistakes happen. But now I've used that mistake, that one mistake, because that actually could be a very serious mistake. And the realization that if that fire had gotten out of control in the church and they didn't have their water source, man, somebody could have got hurt. So now I use that as a way to show that even though I'm the big guy standing in the front of the room, we make mistakes.
Yes.
How do I overcome that mistake? How do I know which side that it comes on? Well, so originally I went and put a magic marker and I wrote "to the fire, to the truck." So, you do that so that it's ingrained, but yeah, you learn. I learned so much from that just one simple mistake. Not only stuff about myself, but I learned, okay, when I teach this from now I have the example. Now I can show somebody this is what can happen. God forbid something bad happens because of it. But now this is why it's important. This is why we look at that stuff at truck check. This is why we look at that stuff when we pull it off the back of the truck and you grab your hydrant wrench and you're pulling the hose and you're getting to the hydrant. You're going to wrap the hydrant. However, each department does it. This is why. And those experiences do nothing but to enhance the instructional abilities of the instructor.
Right.
Because if you're an instructor and you have no experience, are you speaking on theory only, or are you speaking on real life scenarios? And to me, I'm going to listen to that real life scenario guy a hell of a lot more than somebody who's speaking on theory.
Absolutely. When you have somebody in front of you, especially when you pay a ticket or whatever to go to FDIC or whatever, you're listening to somebody, the person that says, I've never done this, I've done everything perfectly, blah, blah, blah. You get up, you walk out. It's the guy that says, here's where I screwed up. And you don't have to screw up like I do. I'll tell you kind of a similar funny story. When I went from Lexington, which was a big department, about 20 stations, 500 firefighters, whatever, to New Albany, 5 stations, 75 people maybe. There was this, at that point I'd been in the fire service 11 years. So there was this thing that kind of followed me like, oh, he's Lexington. He's this big time firefighter, which I wasn't. I was part of a district that was no bigger than New Albany at the time. But anyway, I put the, one of the first fires I had with them, I put the gate valve on the hydrant, and then I hooked my supply hose to the gate valve. I should have hooked it to the other. The gate valve was for somebody else to hook up without having to turn the hydrant off. So I fucked it up. It didn't stop any water. They just couldn't use that hydrant if they had to add to it. So they everybody pulls me over at the end of the fire to just belittle the shit out of me. Oh, Mr. Lexington, blah, blah, blah. And I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I guess I did fuck up. But I'll never forget my major, Battalion Chief Chris Rainbolt, did the best. I never did it twice ever. And I shared it like you. what he did is we got back to Firehouse. He Xeroxed the ISFSI manual on how to do it. And he gave it to me and he said, I want you to fold this up and put it in your helmet. And if I ever ask to check on it, I want to see it there. So for years, that thing was in my helmet and it got more and more tattered. And when finally it just kind of fell apart one time at a fire, he goes, let me see it, Barnes. I'm like, all right, Chief. It just fell apart. He goes, all right, do I need to make you another one or do you got it? I'm like, I got it 6 years ago, but yeah, okay, we're good.
Right.
But it's funny because I don't mind sharing that mistake if somebody else doesn't have to make that mistake.
Right.
That, you know, it is what it is. And that's our job. I mean, imagine a firefighter that doesn't make a mistake. I can't imagine it.
There isn't one.
No, I can imagine a lot that don't share them.
Right.
People try to hide them.
Yeah.
But I think for us to be successful, especially as instructors, you have to own your mistakes. You have to share your mistakes. Again, I feel like it's my penance. I have to share my mistakes. My
father told me that his job as a father was to make sure that I don't make the same mistakes, or if I can lessen the same mistakes. By lessen, I mean make them not hurt as bad.
Right.
And I take that theory to when I instruct. You know, everybody's going to make mistakes. It's how you come out from those mistakes. You know, I take a recruit firefighter who's never put on gear before. It's going to take him a long time, him or her, a long time to be able to put that gear on properly and
right.
and practice. And that's why being a training officer, being understanding that mistakes are going to happen, and you have to guide what they do with the mistakes, especially when they're young in their career. Mm-hmm. I had a couple mentors that were amazing, but those were in the middle of my career. I wish I had somebody like that. And that, again, is one of the driving forces for me. I want to be that mentor. I give my personal cell phone out to all my recruits every time they come through. And there's my door's never been closed. And again, not early in my career, my door was shut, locked, bolted. I didn't want to share that. Knowledge was power to me back then.
Yep.
And now it's knowledge is my responsibility with knowledge is to share that knowledge. Just recently, see, and I think it even goes more so as an instructor in your department, to share that outside your department too. One of the reasons I love the ISFSI is that I get to share some of the knowledge that I have within my department, in my area, in the state of Arizona, because Arizona is, let's be honest, there's a hell of a lot of differences between Arizona and New York.
Mm-hmm. A lot.
And heat is one of them. Hydration is one of them. The topography is completely one of them. But for example, I share everything that I've ever built as far as training. I share with at any time with anybody. I never lock my documents. I will give a document freely. But we're dealing with something right now that in Arizona, and specifically in Scottsdale, actually in the Valley, we're landlocked now. Mm-hmm. So everything's going up. So we've had to change our tactics and strategies. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years training on high-rise fires, mid-rise fires. Well, I tapped into people through the ISFSI to learn some stuff about high-rise fire. For us, a high-rise fire was three floors.
Yeah.
Now we're going 7 stories, but with Class A, Type 1, Type 2 on the first 2 floors, and then 7 floors of Type 5 construction. And those are like, that's my biggest fear right now. So I've had to ask other people that have dealt with that for a long time, my FDNY guy buddies, my Chicago buddies, my Boston buddies. Hey, what's the difference? Now there's philosophical differences, there's equipment differences, and standard operating procedure differences. But the overall, it's still fire. Mm-hmm. You're still fighting fire. Fire is going to act a certain way. So gaining that knowledge. So being an open door, and that open door's got to swing both ways, so that you can not only receive the information, but you got to give it back out. So I think that that's one of the best things that in this training, in the training role, that I've been able to do is, and again, high rises to me were 3-story buildings. Hell, way early in my career, back in the '90s, I fought a two-story double wide trailer. No, no joke.
Two-story double wide trailer,
2-story. And it was the weirdest thing. A guy had built a trailer on top of a trailer, put a set of stairs in it, and it caught fire. And we had to go in there. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a 2-story. My on scene reported I'm on scene of a 2-story mobile home. Well, I'm sure that the dispatchers looked at themselves and went, what the heck is that? But that's what, we just didn't, in Arizona, we just didn't have them. We just,
right.
The buildings weren't, we were spread out. Now everything's going up. So that's what I was kind of talking about in our first series was, things change. They develop over time, the types of fuels, the amount of the burn rates, the chemicals that are involved in it. There's never going to be a time in the fire service that we're not going to have to learn and not going to have to instruct. So,
and we're always behind the 8 ball. We're never going to catch up with it. We're always there's. And I'm glad you brought this up, because one of the things I love about the ISFSI is we're sort of the, lack of better words, informal teaching arm of the FSRI, right? The Fire Service Research Institute. So we're teaching data-driven, science-driven tactics and strategies that have been proven time and time again to work. So with the ISFSI and us being instructors for that, we get access to this information. We get to go around the country and teach it. And then the side effect of it is we get to bring it back to our people. Yep. Hey, I've taught this 20 times now, and look, I'm gonna teach you guys. And you got to stay on top of it. And I used to say that for some of these firefighters that aren't firefighters or city employees, that you deserve to walk into the firehouse. And I've changed my thinking now, because I believe our job is training, and I believe the side effect of that is going to be fighting fire. That's just my mental game, right? My new thing is this: do you deserve to leave the firehouse? Is when your shift is over, did you earn what the community expected you to do to leave that firehouse? Or did you sit on your ass and do fucking nothing, take naps, watch Wheel of Fortune, didn't learn anything new about any of the alternative fuels or electric vehicles or solar panels or high rises? Because if not, you don't deserve to leave. Oh. You got to earn to get into the firehouse, and you should earn to get out of the firehouse. There's too many people, and I've been one of them. I come in there, oh shit, Game of Thrones. I'm going to watch this all day long, and I thought I cut a hog in the ass. I'm like, look at me, I'm a winner. I didn't do nothing today. I was a piece of shit. Is what I was. I didn't deserve to leave that firehouse. I should have stayed.
Tell you that we do have the ability to have those days on occasions, and those days are special. They just can't be habit, and it can't be every day.
Yes.
I gauge a lot of what my crews do on a daily basis based on the shift before or the shift before that. If we get murdered during the shift, and we're up 6 times after midnight, and the guys are beat, that's one of those times where we'll take that down day. That doesn't mean we're not learning. That doesn't mean you can't sit around the kitchen table and learn.
Right.
But there are those times where, hey guys, we got beat up pretty good. We're gonna take it easy today, but here's what we are gonna do.
Right.
Still got to be very task oriented, and I think that's up to our department says it all the time. The captain is the most important person in the department. I believe that 100%. I believe the captains run our department for the most part, and at the direction of our administration. But I think that every daily basis, there's nobody that can affect the firefighters in our department more than the captain. Right. And if you have that captain that is an avid learner, an avid instructor that wants to be in that position, and it isn't just going to work for the paycheck. Those are those people that I want to be around and I want to work with every single day. Having that again, whether it's just a piece of paper. Hey guys, you know what? We haven't talked about how to open an elevator. Does that mean you have to go find a building in the middle of the heat? It's 115 degrees out. You're going to go stand outside of an exterior building. You're going to sweat. You're going to, in between calls, you're going to get 2 calls in between. And then you're going to come back. Guys are tired. Haven't eaten lunch yet. So we can finish our drill of putting the key into the elevator so that everybody gets the opportunity to do it. No.
Mm-hmm.
So I can show a video. ISFSI has tons of videos. Tons of people I could reach out to, get a video on, or some sort of PowerPoint or training, and we can sit in front of the TV in the 72 degrees air conditioned day room and say, "Hey guys, this is what our training is today." Again, it's simple, but that has to be driven by somebody.
Right.
So, being a captain and being in training, those are the things that we actually tried to do. We created a monthly newsletter with training that gave the captain the opportunity to. You had to do a little work.
Mm-hmm.
Captain would have to do a little work. I got to get a little research, but hand them everything so that they can train their guys. Because again, the person that's going to make the most effect on somebody is the officer at the station. So doing stuff like that, that's where everyday learning comes in. Not everyday learning is a 4-company multiple hose line drill, getting up onto the roof, cutting a hole. It doesn't have to be that. It can be something as simple as, "Hey guys, here's the newsletter." You put it on the kitchen table in the morning when everybody's having their coffee, and then I want every one of you guys to take a couple minutes throughout this today and read this. And we'll put it in our vault, so we have it, so that when we get that elevator call and we can get on scene and we can affect whatever we need to fix for that elevator. Right. Whether that's rescuing somebody from the inside or even just knowing our role on a high-rise fire, that we have to take control of the elevators. We just finished a high-rise drill where I learned so much about elevators. I'm like, Jiminy Christmas, FDIC, they had a whole class on elevators. I'm like, I never realized there was that much in stuff I push a damn button, it takes me where I want to go, right?
Learning the different phases and and there's been a lot of mistakes with elevators, and it's funny you bring that up, because some of the simplest things that we do in the fire service that we think is simple can easily go down the road of a line of duty death, like elevators.
Yep.
Not knowing how to use the elevator, not knowing when to stop the elevator, not knowing what equipment to bring up for a high-rise fire. It's a different animal, and I hate when people look at high-rise as, well, the only difference is it's just you're going to be more tired when you get there. It's a different animal. It is just a different animal, and no different than a big box store and a residential, right? Mm-hmm. 2 different animals. Yeah. And if you look at these Dollar General stores, they're teaching more and more of these Dollar General stores are becoming big box stores. Treat them like big box stores because of the way they're made. I think there's a lot of different types of training. I don't think you need to pull hose every single day and throw ladders and all that. Although when the time, when it's a really good day, it's a nice day out there and you want to get dirty, sweaty, man, there's nothing better. Yep. But I feel like having something done, for me, it was the easiest thing to do was line of duty deaths. I thought they low impact physically, a little bit mentally, high impact, and hopefully results. Like, wow, this guy I did this at a fire. He died. I didn't. Okay. I need to relearn. And if you're a training officer and you're not using line of duty death reports, you might be missing the boat, because those things are excellent. We don't have to kill the same firefighter the same way over and over and over. They're
impactful. Anytime you have a death or significant injury, can be very impactful because it brings it to real world. Again, it's that theory that it's the theory on theory teaching, that if you have no experience in that, have never felt the death, that you or an injury, that it's very difficult for you to instruct on it. If you felt that death, you know the cancer rates, you know all the things that can happen in a basement fire, and you can base your training on relevant incidents that have occurred. And again, it's very difficult for me to, in Arizona, a newer state, so to speak, with new construction, new building, to talk about a fire in a row house, or the what we just had the anniversary of the Worcester fire.
Yeah.
I can't teach that because we don't have buildings like that. But what I can teach is the foundation of why that incident occurred. They were in a
Right.
building they that was large, that was mostly vacant. They're doing the job that they were tasked to do. Communication, all those things that failed in that incident, those are things that can happen on a 1700 block constructed house fire.
Hmm.
And making it relevant to what's in your area or what's in your jurisdiction is easy to do. We just don't do it because, oh, that's a big box. That was a 15-story ice storage with old manufacturing. The building itself was over 200 years old and decaying brick and blah 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 blah. I don't
Right.
care. Fire burnt. Same thing can happen in a 1970s 1,200 square foot block constructed house that has a roof where, instead of removing the old roof, they've just added layers to it. So it's
Hmm.
heavier than what it was supposed to be made for.
Yep.
Those things can happen. Guess
Yes.
what? Roof collapses on a single story house, you can still die.
Oh yeah.
So it comes down to how you present those things, and again, relevant is huge. I know one thing I really wanted to talk to you about was data, and this is one of the things that I just learned over the last 4 years: gathering data from incidents that have occurred in the past,
Hmm.
gathering data based on the drills that you do, using that data to recognize skills that need to be taught, or procedures that need to change. Huge way to gather data. And I was never one of those data guys until I started actually compiling it.
Hmm.
Man, you can learn so much. The biggest example I could tell you of data is that we created a quarterly drill. So we bring all our companies down. We break up our training into quarterly segments. We bring them down. We'll do we because we're in Arizona. We do a wildland quarterly. We do a fireground survival type drill. And in this fireground survival type drill, we were doing forcible entry
Hmm.
to get into the house to fight the fire. Very simple. So we put a door prop up in front of our building, and we timed them. Timed every single crew. Had an evaluation form. We had the crew names, blah blah blah. So we'd fill out those forms, hand them to the captain, and say, "Hey," we copied them and handed the captain, "This is what you guys can work on." But we wrote notes.
Hmm.
But what we found we're a very good fire department. I'm very proud of my fire department. I'm very proud of the guys. We have some stellar people that are good at their job. 78% of our crews took over 2.5 minutes to force open a door.
Hmm.
That was a failure on the training division to provide relevant, current, skilled techniques to our companies to get into a door,
Right.
a standard residential door that was locked. 70, almost 78% of our crews couldn't do it. So what did we do? So that next, we took all that data, presented to the chiefs, and said, we are doing a forcible entry rollout of a drill, and we're going to present it. We're going to go to the station. We're going to put out an online portion again because of the heat, because of the time,
Sure.
because of the things that we do. We'll put out an online portion of it, and then we're going to come and we're going to bring our guys down. We're going to walk them through every step to forcibly entry, do forcible entry, and then we're going to review. So we're going to do another drill. We're going to put a door up front. We're going to take the data that we get from that and see if we made improvements. Well, over a 3-month period, we did all those things, brought our crews back, put a door in front of a fire, made it to be part of our live fire drill. Boom. 97% of our crews were under 2 minutes to get that door forced using the proper techniques. And what it did, kind of a side thing, is it made them look at the building before they entered. So you read smoke now. You took a second while your crew was forcing the door. The captain did a 360 of the building, then came back, looked at the smoke that was being produced from the outside because he had a minute to do so instead of getting, what is that, moth to flame. Boom, I'm going in that front door. I'm going to hard charge. I'm going to put that dang fire out. No, gives an observation of the overall, the totality of the scenario before he went inside. They were more successful inside because they took that little bit of time, the captain did, while his crew was forcing entry, and boom, they made a difference going inside too. So data drove us. We would have never done that if we never sat there, did some actual hard numbers and some evaluations. So we add somebody outside standing there watching everybody, give an honest, open evaluation, and then gave that to the officers, said, here, we're not hiding it. We're not showing anybody else. We're not hiding it. We didn't put any names to it. We put crews only, and then provided the training afterwards. What a difference that made. And again, it made even more than we thought. So I'm a big believer in data now, and I try to add data. The second part of that is we did a high-rise drill after doing, I was explaining earlier, but that's new to us.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Yeah. I got to know, what was the big change? What was the problem from the first set of scores, for lack of a better word, to the second? Was it communication, not knowing the tools?
It was all technique. So everybody came up, they wanted to just take a sledgehammer to the door, or we had a guy kick the door. This is a door prop made to be used for forcible entry, and he wanted to kick the door. The only fires he'd ever been on, he kicked the door. Now we've all kicked the door. Any of us with age on us, we've kicked the door in. Okay, that works sometimes, but that doesn't work all the time. And frankly, it puts you in your susceptible injury, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Safety. So. It was techniques. So guys were using, and I'll even get really specific. Guys were not using the adze end of the Halligan to force the door. So they were sticking in the forks and just trying to pry and pry and pry. Right. Well, that works 10% of the time. But if you use the developed techniques by using the adze end, you're forcing, you're bending, you're gathering the back end of the door when you have the opportunity, once you created a big enough gap, all those things, those procedures you do, man, they just sped it up. And guys were like, well, this isn't a brute force skill. Well, that's why we trained you. It's not a brute force skill. You got to be strong. You got to do some work, but it's technique. And it was all technique, and literally, and I'm not saying it wasn't because of lack of training on it. I'm saying it was because of lack of proper training on it. Our training division that we developed over those 4 years that we've been in there, we were able to take a skill that I thought everybody knew about and make it better. And that was a huge win for our department. Again, techniques. And so the ultimate gratification for somebody who's in training and is a training officer, you hear on the radio, there's a house fire, and it's right down the street. We'll go to it. So we go to the house fire and we watch guys as they make entry, and they're using the techniques to get in there. We taught a drill on hydraulic ventilation and just recently, how effective it actually can be. If you can't send somebody to the roof, how effectively hydraulic ventilation. We're on the scene. I'm standing next to a deputy chief who just did the same thing I did, drove to this fire. He just wanted to see how things were going. And I look and I see somebody open, not break, open the window, stick the hose out, hydraulically ventilate so that he could clear the room, so that when he finished his search, he was 100% sure the search was complete. And I'm like, and the deputy chief, he hits me on the shoulder and he goes, dang, they're actually listening to you guys. I mean, there's no better gratification for somebody who's in training to get that. That's real time feedback. That's real world feedback, man. It was such a great thing to see. So you take the data, you find out what we're missing, you use the data, you create training to make whatever's missing be relevant, and you put it together, and then you put out the training, and then you get to see the results of training. It's amazing. It really is. And again, I was never a data guy. I mean, I took college math and was like this close to not graduating my college math class because I'm not a math guy. I have to use a calculator everywhere. But
Yeah.
to take that data and actually see it, and once you develop it, you could drive training, and it's an amazing thing.
It is. It's really. I love what you're saying because you can apply it to almost every aspect of training, and it's a way to quantify the level you are at.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody that needs to work on something, pulling hose, throwing ladders, forcing doors, whatever it is, having that time stamp lets you know that you're improving or not improving. But one of the things I like about it, it wasn't real popular where I was at because of I was fighting against a culture of I don't even know how to say this, that don't pit us against each other, right? And I'm like, well, but there are better firefighters than you. There's a better firefighter here than me. There's a better truck company on a different crew. Blah blah blah. It's okay. Division is okay. So I started making two. Every time I did a drill, I did two drills. One was mandatory, pretty average drill. No, see anything you'd see anywhere else. And then I had what I called the 1%er drill. This 1%er drill was totally voluntary. You didn't have to do it. It was the hardest drill you would probably do ever. And it was very few people actually passed it, which was never the design of it. The design of it was to teach people that you have way more in your tank than you know. Well, man, that did not work well for me. The Chiefs pulled me in, and the Chiefs would have to use GPS to find the training grounds. They had no idea where training grounds were. So they're like, "Oh, you can't divide people like that. That's not right." I'm like, I do whatever you tell me to do, but no, this is great. This is we're hitting everything. All this to say is that I was told not to time anything, even the 1410 drills. They were against me timing. I said, that's the whole idea of the 1410 drills.
Yeah.
But I said, there's an aspect to timing a firefighter that you're not taking in account, and that you're adding stress. It's so hard for us in training to add realistic stress without realistically hurting somebody, but that is a great way to do it. If you put somebody under a time, they put themselves under stress. Their heart rate goes up. Their blood pressure goes up. They lose a little bit of their feelings. I'm not saying get them in condition black, but I am saying you push somebody as safely as you can to where it affects them physically and mentally, because that's when they're going to act. That's the way they're going to be at a real fire when they're forcing doors.
We all know there's that one chief out there that wants training to be punitive. If you fail, you have to go do something. You're being punished, and that never. I can never prescribe to that. I never want to see that ever again. And I grew up with that. If you made a mistake on a fire, and the chief found out, that next shift you were drilling on it, and it wasn't a comfortable drill. It was you're going to work your butt off. You're going to be exhausted just because you made that mistake. To me, that's just that it can never be punitive. And when you explain it. So I think where we've gotten away from, we could spend another whole day talking about this. Our softness, we've had to become a little bit softer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that not being punitive is okay now, but I think you have to have the ability to have those difficult conversations with people when there is something there's missing or something that needs to be fixed. Yes. So it can be mistake driven, but it also can be just not knowledge driven. I don't have the knowledge. Give me the knowledge. And that's where the training I think the training division needs to come in. That's why being able to sit somebody down, hey, okay, here's what you didn't do properly on this drill. And then here's what you could do to fix it.
Right.
I don't expect it to be fixed tomorrow. I mean, obviously, unless it's a safety thing, I don't expect it to be fixed tomorrow, but I expect to see progress, and
Yeah.
I want to see progress.
Yeah.
I think that's the way. I think that's kind of the mold you have to take now. Being punitive, making somebody. One of the first things we were told, me and my partner Matt, in training when we did our first two really big drills, the one thing that came back, because it was not what occurred before, previous to with training, was, man, thank you. You made that comfortable. Thank you. You didn't. Your objective wasn't just to kill us. Thank you. That drill, I learned. I learned something from that drill. Those are those things. That's when you know. I mean, truly, when you get a guy that's been on 25 years and he comes and he thanks you, he goes, "Man, I didn't know some of that stuff. Thank you for giving it to me, and I didn't feel like I was being punished."
Yeah.
Those are huge. Those are huge.
Yes.
And that comes back. We had a different culture, Jake. You and I know that. Us growing up in the fire service, our culture was completely different. We've adapted to it now, and I think we've done a damn good job adapting to it now.
Mm.
We make mistakes, and we're going to make mistakes because you can't lump 100 people into the same mold. You have to be able to adjust to each mold. But yeah, I think those changes. Punitive stuff doesn't work in the fire service anymore. It never will anymore. I think punitive stuff for behavior, yeah, it's a different story. But skill wise,
Right.
You can't have a drill and somebody fails and then be punitive by making them go out and drill. You got to train them, make sure they understand the drill, and then give them steps to get to that where you want them to be. I think that's super important.
I had an asshole captain that just next level asshole. He really should have been an ex-wife. He was that bad. But we had a firefighter that honestly, this firefighter shouldn't be a firefighter. It just should not. I mean, I shouldn't be an astronaut. I shouldn't be a dentist. So it's okay. But this one guy, this one kid, he tried so fucking hard, dude. His heart, I'd give anything to have his heart and passion. The connection between his mind and his body, they called him 51st dates because every time he go to sleep, he'd wake up and forget everything, right? But man, passion, just super passion. So evidently he screwed up on a fire, nothing major. But when you start looking for mistakes, you start finding them.
Oh, yeah.
So this asshole captain ran him drill after drill, hooking up to the hydrant at the firehouse, full gear in the heat until he didn't pass out, but he almost did. And he vomited and and I'm like, I didn't know this was even going on till after the fact. And he's like, well, that's the way I was taught. Yeah. If I need to know firefighting from 1986, I will go to you every time. But anything that's happened from 87 on, you don't know the first fucking clue.
Right.
And to this day, he breaks out every window. He told me he breaks out every window, leaves every door open. Truckee, by the way. And I'm showing him the science. Again, talked about it last week. Hey, one of the benefits of teaching for ISFSI, you and I get to go back and teach all the stuff that we know. It's heartbreaking. And you and I probably came into the same thing where the first year, shut up. Clean the shitters, shut up. Right? And I'm totally against that. Simply because how do you know what somebody knows if you tell them to shut up? Doesn't make any sense, right?
No.
I'm not saying they're instant part of the family in the sense of, you're like a firefighter like me. No. But the bravest thing you ever did was sign up to be a firefighter. Everything else is your job, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you don't have the stories at the fire table, at the dinner table to go, oh, I remember that fire. It was an attic fire. Yeah, you don't have that. But you know what? You're part of the team. You wanted to join us. You're listening to us. We're teaching you. That's the way the firefighter is. Is it softer? It absolutely is. I think it's yielding better firefighters. I really do. I think the days of screaming and yelling are gone. That article right there, I wrote that because I didn't know that. I had a new crew kept asking me why, and I'm like so aggravated, and it hit me one day. I'm like, I didn't answer the why because I didn't know it. And then when I realized the different generations have different needs, it opened up a whole new world to me.
Yeah,
And
I think
that's
to me, I think what your statement that we're getting better firefighters, I think it's because they ask why. And I
yes,
was one of those. Man, why do I am the captain. Why do I have to justify? I mean, it's like my kids.
mhm,
You have to go to bed by 10 o'clock. Well, why? Because I said so. That doesn't bode now. You can't get away with that. You have to
mm-mm,
give justification. Well, you have to go to bed at 10 o'clock because science proves that you need 8 full hours of sleep. I'm going to wake you up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And if you don't go to bed by 10 o'clock, you're not going to get the required number of sleep, which makes you optimal for learning, blah, 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 blah. So you got to give them that.
exactly
Now, I'm not saying you got to go that far, but
right.
the answer of my dad saying, because I told you, it doesn't work anymore.
Nope.
But I think that the benefit of that is that you learn what the end result is of the skill you're trying to teach. So why do I need to use the adds end to force entry? Well, here's why.
Right.
Because the torque you put on the door puts it specifically to the bolt side instead of over the whole door while you're trying to pry it open. Because you're using a fulcrum, blah, blah, blah. You've explained why,
Mhm.
and it hits them better, so it sticks better. So when they do learn it, it's not one of those things that they have to learn over and over again.
Right.
And I think answering the question why, because I know I remember when I was sitting in classroom getting my firefighter 1 and 2, and somebody would bring up, why do we cut a hole? We cut a hole to let the smoke out. Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Mhm.
I didn't need to know what the conditions did inside. I didn't need to know that the heat released and then opening the front door, you create that flow path, blah, blah, blah. I didn't need to know that. I just needed, okay, why do you want cut a hole? Let's smoke out. Cool. Let's go. Let's cut a hole.
Yeah.
Right. Me being the dumb jock that was going to get up on the roof for most of my career and cut holes, that was cool. And I love that. And that was a great aspect of my job for a long period of time. But now, knowing the science, having the ability to answer those whys
Mhm.
is creating a better fire service.
It
Uh,
absolutely
I
is.
still think we have some physical and softness limitations in certain areas, but I think overall we're listening to the science, and ultimately, what is that going to make us? Those line of duty deaths are going to come down. We're not going to have 100 line of duty deaths a year because the kids we're teaching now understand the science of not only what the fires can do, but what the fire can do to kill you.
Right.
And if I can honestly say I prevent one injury or one death in my career, no matter what happens from this day on, is 1,000% successful
Yep.
because that one death is that important. That one death is if I tell a kid, hey, get out of your turnout gear because we still wear the cancer give off, whatever the term is, gear. We only want to be in our gear when we necessarily have to.
Right.
And if that prevents that kid from getting a cancer, then
Yes.
I acted appropriately at that time. And that's part of being a captain, part of being a trainer. Actually, it's part of being a leader in your department
Mhm.
because that's what it's about. Yeah, as a training captain, you are an unofficial leader of your department.
Yep.
Or training officer, I should say. You're an unofficial leader of the department. And actually, in certain aspects and certain ranks, you're probably even more of an outspoken leader than any one of them. So you have to understand that, and this is where I kind of struggle every once in a while. Every once in a while, I can't get out of my own way, and I don't lead by example. You have to lead by example. That has to be 100%. If I'm not wearing the correct PPE, guess what? Somebody needs to yell at me, and that just happened to me. I'm 58 years old, and I'm outside on the grinder in the wrong PPE, and I've got recruits on another truck doing some drill, and one of my um, friends comes up and reminds me, "You're not leading by example, because look at what you're doing and look at what PPE you are in."
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "Dang it, you're right. I hate that you're right. I want to hit you because you're right." And then I walked into the training center, got changed, came back out, and went right to work again.
Yep. I saw I don't know if it was a video or an article. It's been a long time ago, but it changed my view on some of this stuff. And it was about teaching. The subject was teaching new recruits how to get on a roof, how to sound a roof, cut a roof, all that stuff. So the picture showed all the recruits wearing their gear the right way. The instructor had his turnout pants and his helmet. That was me. And I'm like so embarrassed. I looked at it. I was like, no. So then now when I teach that stuff, I put my air pack on. The only thing I may not do, and I explained prior to it, is I may not put my mask on and breathe air like they have to. Right. And I tell them, I'm like, the only reason I'm not doing this is so you can clearly hear me, because this is a new skill for you.
Well, Jake, I mean, you look at social media. I subscribe to on my Instagram. I subscribe to a bunch of different fire related. I follow them, the sites, and how many times over the last 2 weeks I've seen videos where guys are on the roof and they don't have their mask on, and fire's blowing through the roof. And I see that, and it makes me cringe, and then I'll go to the training yard and I'll do the same thing. Now, obviously not under fire conditions, because I'm not that stupid. But it makes a difference. If that's what I'm noticing, guess what? That's what the kids are noticing. Hey, why doesn't Captain Ambrosia have to be wearing his steel-toed boots when he's working around putting together a vent prop? That's heavy equipment. Shouldn't he be wearing steel-toed boots? Now, they're not thinking of that because they're too young and they don't know the difference. But the 20 year experience guys looking at me going, man, he must be nice to be a training captain. They get to wear their PT stuff all day long. Now, again, that's not the person I am, and that's not the person I want people to look at. It's tough. It's tough to be a training guy because you're expected to do things correct all the time.
Yes.
Because you're teaching it. And I still tell people, man, we make mistakes. I make mistakes. It's how you overcome those mistakes, and it's how you react to those mistakes. And if you can be professional and you can say, yep, I made a mistake. I'm going to put that in my bank, and I'm never going to make that mistake again.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, and I think that sets such a good example. I have a couple of times really screwed up some embarrassing stuff. Like I've been teaching a class on pulling lines, and I go to pull the line and it just doesn't work. It falls apart on me, and I'm the training guy. And then I'm like, all right, well, I fucked up. And then I'll ask them, what did I do wrong? Well, when you grabbed it, you did this, you did that, and you didn't do that. You're exactly right. Please help me load it. Give me another chance. I call them redemption runs. Let me have a redemption run.
Redemption run? I like that.
A redemption run. Let me have a redemption run. And I might screw it, but I have a lot of respect for officers that go first, even if they're not 100% sure. And I tell them, if it's just me and the officers, I'm like, go first. Well, yeah, I've never done it, but it doesn't matter. If you make a mistake, acknowledge a mistake, fix a mistake, you send that message to everybody watching. Trust me. And I've had quite a few do it, and I've had those that sit in the back and never, ever do it at all. It drives me crazy.
That's the non-participants, the guys that sit in the back and don't want to do it. Usually, and it depends on the personality. I tend to, okay, well, I was going to ask to see if anybody wanted to go first, but you're going to go first.
Yeah.
And you're going to show me.
Yep.
So yeah, there's always ways around that. As a good instructor, man, I tell you what, recognizing the room means a lot. And if you're going to be a good instructor, realizing all the different personalities that are in your room. Now, you may not get the opportunity to do that. Like when we go to do the 1400 class, we're not going to know the people for the most part, we're probably not going to know a lot of the people we're teaching, but it's pretty. You can get a pretty good view of the room in the first 5 minutes. I personally like to go up and shake people's hand. That tells me a lot about who that person is. If I get that confident, strong, professional handshake, I know. And even if you go in and the handshake is a little bit awkward, if that person says that wasn't a good handshake, I need to do it the right way. I love that, even because I do that every once in a while. I'll miss and I go, God dang it, that was horrible. Give me another one.
Redemption run.
Yeah, redemption run. There you go.
So the next time we teach together, I'm gonna give you like the weirdest little guppy handshake.
So we call that limp wrist handshakes, and those are.
I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna lick my fingertips first, then do it. How's that?
All right. How about just give me a kiss then?
I'm glad you brought up kissing. I don't know why I said that. So I appreciate you being on here, but we always end the same way. I got to hear what's the best firehouse prank that you have played or have played on you.
So funny. I had a firehouse prank that I played on a guy. He was the 7:50 guy. So we do shift change at 8:00. So he would never be in early. He was always right up to the 8:00 time. And great guy, phenomenal guy. I liked being around him. It was a 7:50 guy. He always had an explanation. He told me way beforehand, I got to take my kids to school. I won't be in till 7:50. My problem with it was that he never returned the favor. He went the days he didn't have to come in. He was still the 7:50 guy. Didn't have to take care of the kids. He would 7:50 guy. Well, and me being a dummy, and I never. Well, then I'm going to come in at 7:50. No, I was always there at 7:00. I always relieved him early. So he really got an hour of off time almost every day.
Right.
I didn't get. So, well, anyway, one day, my partner and I, we cooked some bone-in chicken for dinner, getting rid of the bones. And I'm like, yeah, I got to do something. So I found his turnout jacket hanging up in the bay, and I put that bone in his jacket. Well, you go thinking about it, and you think about it the next shift. He doesn't say anything. Next shift, he doesn't say anything. Probably a couple shifts after that, I didn't even really think about it anymore. Well, I go in. So several years later, completely forgotten about the whole gag. Several years later, I go in for my promotional interview, and this guy that I played that put the chicken in his coat. He was a ladder climbing guy. I mean, he's super intelligent. Everybody knew he was going to be a chief at some point. He promoted, and he was actually on my interview for promotional exam for the captains, and brings me inside, sits me down with the two other chiefs that were doing the interview, and he goes, so let's just start this off, blah, blah, blah. I got to ask you a question about something. So he asked me, he starts running me down this line of, yeah, so when we were stationed together, I know I always came in a little bit late. I know that bugged you every once in a while. And, happened to had a fire several years after I promoted, and I put my hand in my jacket, and I pull out a decaying chicken breast. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? So he goes on to tell the other two chiefs that I played a joke on him, put a chicken breast in it. He didn't realize it for 2.5 years. He pulls it out. It's decayed. It's molded. It was actually part of it was stuck to the inside of the coat pocket. He said that this was before we had turnout cleaning and turnout exchange. We cleaned our stuff at the station with a brush and all that stuff. Yeah. And he said, I didn't even realize it. And it took me a while to figure out who did it. And then looking at the age of the chicken, and I knew it was you. So I saved that for all these years, knowing that at some point I'm going to bring that back to you. And he laughed, and he had a laugh, and I got promoted. So it obviously didn't keep me from getting promoted. So, but it was just one of those stories where, man, that didn't get the effect that I wanted it to get, but it still was a good story.
It'd been great if you slid it across the promotional table, like,
Oh
does this
my
look
God.
familiar?
Yeah. Well, I would have known right off the bat what it was then. Yeah.
So I try not to tell any of my stories, but we were talking earlier and you reminded me of one, and it's a Minuteman one. We call them Minutemen, people that don't show up at least like for us, it was a half hour. Our shift starts at 6:30. Everybody gets there at 6. That's just kind of how it works. Some people get there a little bit early, but that way people are able to switch out, go take their kids to school, stuff like that. So get there at 6 o'clock all the time. Well, I was floating, so I didn't have a home, and I was relieving a truck one driver. He always got to work at 5 o'clock. That was his thing. He'd get to work, make coffee, everybody's still asleep. But if you didn't relieve him early, he'd get pissed, right? So I wasn't even assigned to his truck. I was just floating. So I come in one day at 6 o'clock. He's obviously pissed. He was ready to go an hour ago, I guess. And I'm getting some pass on from him. He's just really shitty to me. Just like, fuck, off he goes. Okay. So that's when I get told, hey, listen, Greg really likes to be relieved super early. And I'm like, I'm not coming to work at 5 o'clock, an hour and a half early. I'm not doing it. But I don't expect him to either. So now the very next day I come to, so I work my shift. He relieves me. I go home, get ready to come back. Well, the very next day after this, I have a golf scramble that I plan for my local union. So I get up. I'm all excited about leaving early because I know Greg's going to get there at 5 o'clock, and he is there. And I'm like, hey, Greg, I didn't have much going on last night, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go. He goes, I'm going to have his coffee before I put my stuff on in the truck. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Whatever. He sat there and drank coffee until 6:30 for an hour and a half. He would not relieve me. That was his fuck you, right?
Right.
So I had mentioned earlier, I'm kind of a dickhead. So that bothers me for like a couple of days. I go to relieve him. I'm driving. It's 10 till 6. It's early, right? But I'm driving there. Sun's coming up. And I see him outside. All the bays were open. I see him right there, and I'm just pissed now. So I start doing circles. I'll go around the block for 25, 30 minutes. And I beep and I wave at him out front. And you can just see his face get redder and redder. And now everybody is coming out watching because I was a fairly new guy, fucking with an older guy. And so he sat there and he's crossing his arms. And I just keep driving around 30, 40 times, beeping, waving, drive around, beeping, waving. So finally, I go in, relieve him, and he comes up to me, and I'm sitting in front of the truck, the engine at this point. He goes, "We got a problem, Buck." I said, "No." I said, "It was just a sunrise was beautiful. I just couldn't get enough of it." And the guy next to me goes, "It's a very beautiful sunrise," just like that. And that was it. He never had that expectation of me again to get there at 5 a.m. And I did not like
that's awesome.
just me being a dick. I'm good at that.
The fact that you just drove around for 30 minutes is the best part of the story and waved. That's awesome.
Beeping and waving, and I couldn't stop. I was like, when you're doing something, you're like, this is wrong, but it's right. I'm going to keep on trucking.
But it's right. Yeah.
Well, brother, I appreciate you being on. I need everybody to learn everything they can about you. You're a fantastic human being, a fantastic instructor. Can't wait to work with you again, brother. It's just been a blast. Thank you so much for giving me part of your Sunday.
Thank you, Jake, man. It was amazing to be able to come on and talk to you. You are an amazing person, and I look forward to getting to know you even more and more and become better friends. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. You have a good rest of your weekend. You too, buddy. All right. Now I'm going to stop. Today's podcast was sponsored by Fire Facilities, designers and manufacturers of realistic, built-to-last training structures and mobile units for 35 years. Make training count. Visit firefacilities.com for more information.